What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to get into my top must-start and must-sit wide receivers for Week 3. Yesterday we did my top 5 must-start running backs, but today we had a little bit more time to dive into 5 must-start wide receivers and 5 must-sit ones. Now, before we get into that, make sure you go down below, leave a like if at any point in time during this video you enjoyed the content, and make sure you subscribe, man. We're going to be putting these types of videos out every single day from now all the way until your fantasy football championships in December. So make sure you stick with us, turn the notification bell on so you know when we post. Without further ado, let's go. All right, so first up with our must-start wide receivers. This one's fairly obvious, but I kind of want to, lead ourselves up before we start going dumpster diving with these wide receivers. Let's talk about DK Metcalf at Minnesota. And obviously, if you have DK Metcalf, you're probably starting him, but I like to put one of these guys on here where I can just give you guys that confidence. I know it's been a tough road for you DK Metcalf owners, wide receiver 33 in PPR at this point, but he's still getting the volume. He is now tied with Tyler Lockett for targets. They're both getting the same amount of targets. We talked about this on my buy low video. There's a Spider-Verse out there, a Doctor Strange, a Doctor Strange outcome where they both have the same amount of targets, and it's DK Metcalf that is going crazy and it's Tyler Lockett that is kind of lagging behind. That's just kind of how efficiency works when we're working with such a small sample size. And DK Metcalf has a big matchup this week. They have the highest over-under, tied for the highest over-under on the slate this week. Seahawks versus the Vikings. The Vikings have allowed the third most points to opposing wide receivers so far. Patrick Peterson has been getting absolutely dusted every single week. I think that there's a clip out there where Jamarr Chase just makes him look goofy, and Minnesota's just been giving up free points to the wide receivers. They've been in a couple shootouts so far. I think that they put up 30 points against the Cardinals last week, and we now have a spot where DK Metcalf is queued up to go crazy. I also love Tyler Lockett this week. I think that they're both locked and loaded top 8 plays. Then we're going to scale a little bit back to Mike Evans, who's going to be playing in Los Angeles against the Rams. And he had that classic squeaky wheel game against Atlanta last week. It was just clear that, Tom Brady, Tampa Bay, whoever, talked with Mike Evans was, okay, we're going to get you involved in the game plan this week, especially against a team like Atlanta where they're favored by so much and they were going to win anyway. So why not get the big fella involved? They gave him 9 targets, 5 catches for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had a great day. And it now seems like Antonio Brown's going to be missing Sunday. He has COVID. I think that he tested positive maybe a few days ago. I would be absolutely shocked if the guy can get 2 negative tests by Sunday. So I'm pretty much operating under the assumption that Antonio Brown is going to be out this week, which gives Mike Evans and Chris Godwin a big bump. And they would both be crazy good plays, but they're going to be playing the Rams this week. Now there's 2 things to kind of dissect here. One is that this is the highest over-under on the slate, tied with Vikings versus the Seahawks. So this is going to be a high-scoring game. The problem is that the Rams defense is tough, especially the pass defense with Jalen Ramsey. And I like Mike Evans because Jalen Ramsey this year, for whatever reason, he's been playing a lot in the slot. He now has 66% of his snaps logged in at the slot. Now, I will warrant a little bit of concern because Jalen Ramsey in 3 matchups last year, he shadowed DK Metcalf, Mike Evans, and somebody else that I can't think of off the top of my head. So he might shadow Mike Evans, or he might play in that natural slot role like he's been playing for these first 2 games this season. So you're kind of rolling the dice here. But we're all starting Chris Godwin because he's been great through 2 weeks. I just like Mike Evans this week because there's a chance that Jalen Ramsey is going to play a majority of his snaps in the slot and give Mike Evans a lighter matchup on the outside, maybe score a touchdown or 2 in this game. Then we have another big, hulking, outside, clashing wide receiver in Devonta Smith. Just kidding, obviously. Slim Reaper. He's been out here killing it, man. I'm honestly already down to take the L on Devonta Smith. I wasn't high on him coming out of school. I'll be honest with you guys, and don't be shied away from his quiet week last week. So he had 3.6 points on 2 catches for 16 yards, but his volume and his usage so far has been wild. It's been crazy. He still saw 7 targets. He now has a 26.8% target share. To put that into perspective, we are only 2 weeks through the season. Justin Jefferson last year, one of the best seasons I've seen from a rookie in a long time, he had a 25.8% target share. Devonta Smith is seeing elite volume, and it's only week 2 at this point. If we go back to Justin Jefferson through 2 weeks, he wasn't even a starter yet. He wasn't even out there in the formation on all the plays. So his target share would probably be better than 25.8% if he had, been a starter earlier. But that still just goes to show how crazy what Devonta Smith is doing so far. He's one of 8 wide receivers to have a 25% or better target share through 2 weeks. And like I said, I'm ready to take the L on Devonta Smith. He is out here earning targets. And that is probably what I care about the most when it comes to wide receivers. We want guys that go out there, they command targets, they command volume, because everything else, the efficiency of the production, follows after that. If you can get a guy on the field that is going to get volume every single game, week in and week out, that is a huge skill. Earning, like, targets are earned. They're not given. Like a running back carry, whoever's in the backfield, whether that's, Elijah Mitchell, Jamichael Hasty, whoever that is, they're going to be earning, they're going to be given those carries. But when you have 3 wide receivers on the field, being that guy that is focused in on in that one singular play to get a target, it means that you got open, you beat your man. That takes a lot of skill. It takes a lot more skill than getting a carry. And he also has a 23% target per route run, which matches what Justin Jefferson did last year. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that he is going to be Justin Jefferson, break the record, all that good stuff. I'm just saying when you put them side by side in terms of earning volume, Devonta Smith has been elite. And we now have a matchup on Monday night against the Cowboys. It's going to be a shootout. It's like a 51-point over-under. And I think he's going to get free on Trevon Diggs. I think the volume's going to be there. I think we see Devonta Smith bounce back here. He's going to be probably a firm, in that wide receiver 21 to wide receiver 24 area for me. Then we have another slim boy, Marquise Brown. He's going to be at Detroit this week, and he's been an absolute monster through 2 weeks. I have him on maybe like I have like 12 redraft teams. I have, or like managed ones. Obviously, I have like a billion best ball teams. But Marquise Brown has been insane. He has a 31.4% target share, 4th in the NFL, which we've never seen him command targets like this, and he is the wide receiver 8 in points per game on the season. It's insane. I don't think anyone would have, like, if he was going to get there, right? If Marquise Brown was going to pay off at ADP, it was going to be from like busted plays and long shots and 60-yard touchdowns, and he's been doing that. But nobody expected him to come out here and command 30% or more targets. Now, obviously, 30% target share doesn't really happen that often. I don't think that that's going to be what his target share is at once we get to week 17, week 18. But I like him again this week. He now gets a cupcake matchup again against the Lions secondary. These guys have just been letting people score on them like crazy this year. And Marquise Brown has the 3rd highest advantage versus opposing defensive backs this week, according to PFF. And he is going to absolutely shred Detroit this week. I have him as a firm wide receiver 2. Again, in that same range as Devonta Smith, probably going to be in that wide receiver 20 to wide receiver 24 range. Now, if you guys want access to my weekly rankings, I'm going to be coming out with them every single Thursday on the Patreon for $5, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. We get the waiver wire fab guide on Tuesdays. We get the weekly rankings on Thursdays. I'm going to start even doing some rest of season ranks on there too, now that we're getting caught up into the season, now that Fantasy Pros approved me as an expert. Little round of applause, please. Now... Now, obviously, I'm just joking. Let's talk about Kenny Golladay. This is going to be like kind of our flyer must start, and it's kind of weird to say he's a flyer because he was getting drafted as like a top 30 wide receiver this season, but he's been tough to start this year, man. He is the wide receiver 66 at this point, and here's the thing, though. Kenny Golladay usually averages about a 20% target share. That's been my knock on him this entire time, that he's never been a target magnet. And he is getting the same amount of volume he usually does. He just hasn't seen a lot of efficiency. And if you guys were watching the game, there was this part in the game where he went up to Daniel Jones and he was arguing with him and yelling at him, like, get me the damn ball. A lot of times with these possession guys, like a Kenny Golladay, like a Mike Evans, these possession receivers where they don't create a lot of separation, they don't earn targets the same way that, a player who gets open, like a Diggs or a Devontae Adams, guys that have really good route running and are always like wide open. They don't get as many targets unless of like you make a conscious effort to give them a target because the windows are always super tight. And that's how you get the squeaky wheel games with like Mike Evans, where they just start force feeding him the ball. I think the same thing is going to happen with Kenny Golladay. I think that they're going to, give him that squeaky wheel game where they start targeting him more. They give him some red zone looks. And coincidentally, the Mike Evans squeaky wheel game was against the Falcons. Kenny Golladay is at home against the Falcons this week. So I think, we see Kenny Golladay get that squeaky wheel treatment. They're going to give him some more targets. The Falcons are giving him the 8th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that he is a locked and loaded top 24 wide receiver, but I think that he is a firm wide receiver 3 for this week. Now, moving on to our must-sit wide receivers, we're going to talk about Jamarr Chase. And I love Jamarr Chase. I think he's one of the best. He's probably the best prospect in Amari Cooper, and I've been saying that, and I love him. but he's also been running extremely high. He's kind of the opposite of Devonta Smith, where he hasn't been commanding, that 25% plus target share. Now, obviously, he has more competition. I think if you swap Devonta Smith and Jamarr Chase in terms of their situations, Jamarr Chase probably does similar in terms of a target share perspective, but Jamarr Chase has T. Higgins, who's an absolute monster. He has Tyler Boyd, who's going to command a lot of targets. So he's been running hot on efficiency and touchdowns and, deep shots, which is great, right? We want that, but he's the wide receiver 20, despite being wide receiver 57 on the season in targets. So he's really outperforming his volume at this point. He is 5th in points over expectation on PFF, which is a good thing, but it also means that we're going to be looking at some regression if that volume doesn't tick up, and I think it will over the long run, but we just have a tough matchup this week against Pittsburgh. He's going to be at Pittsburgh, and that's going to be a tough matchup because their corners are good, and then they also have a tough front seven. That front seven for the Steelers is going to literally eat up the Broncos' offensive line. I don't know. Hold on. Let me look up real quick. Yeah, I just looked it up. The Bengals have the worst advantage against their opposing D-line. They're going to get absolutely shredded. They're minus 45% in the pass in terms of pass blocking. So they are going to get shredded by the Steelers front seven. And all I would say is that when we're relying on Jamarr Chase to win on 9 rounds, long touchdowns, if Joe Burrow isn't going to have the time in the pocket to, kind of set those things up, I would just temper expectations on Jamarr Chase. Not saying that he needs to be sat in your lineup unless you have a bunch of stud wide receivers like a lot of the subscribers of the Ron Stewart channel do. The thing with Jamarr Chase is that he's usually a back-end wide receiver 2 for me in terms of my weekly rankings, but this week he's probably going to be a back-end wide receiver 3 with boom or bust type upside. Moving on from Jamarr Chase, we have Corey Davis, who put up an absolute dud against the Patriots last week. The whole offense put up a dud against the Patriots, man. As a Jets fan, it is so tough. This guy, Zach, I cannot believe that this guy, Zach Wilson, threw 4 interceptions. You would think. Now, a part of me, okay, respect the balls. You have to respect the balls on this kid to go out there and throw 4 interceptions the first quarter. But at a certain point, just turn into do your best Alex Smith, Mac Jones impression, and just keep the ball tight and just get your checkdowns, get other stuff going. You don't have to keep on pushing the envelope, and it's tough. Now, I will say, Corey Davis, he's third on his team in target share, which isn't good, and his routes run weren't good last week. I think that some of those numbers were skewed because he got pulled in the fourth quarter because that game got so ugly. But we're looking at another tough matchup where I think, Vic Fangio, one of the best defensive minds in the league, we could also see some mind games with Zach Wilson again, and it pains me to say as a Jets fan, but I think that Zach Wilson's going to have another really tough game, probably 2-3 interceptions, and the Broncos have the 4th highest PFF pass coverage grade, and we're looking at a Jets team who now has the lowest team total on the slate. We are talking 15.5 points is how much they're projected for by Vegas. They're projected to lose by double digits. It's going to be an ugly game. It might be so ugly where they literally pull Corey Davis in the fourth quarter again. I wouldn't want to rely on anybody in this offense against Denver. I think that there will be better days to come for this Jets team, mid-season once the schedule lightens up a little bit. But Davis is probably a fringe wide receiver 3, just barely in the top 36 for me. I would be trying to move off of him if I could. Then we have the Dolphins pass catchers at Las Vegas, and I had these guys in here last week, but then Will Fuller ended up not playing, so it didn't really apply. But this is going to be, again, pretty much the same thesis where it's Will Fuller's first game back. We don't know how the target shares are going to kind of shake out in this first week back. Are they going to ease Will Fuller in? Is Will Fuller now just the alpha? Does Will Fuller kind of replace Jalen Waddle in that field stretcher role? Do they like what Jalen Waddle did and Devontae Parker, and they kind of, make Will Fuller earn his way back into the rotation? We don't know yet. So in terms of Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki's just been terrible. Will Fuller, all those guys, I'm not starting any of them. I think that they're all pretty much wide receiver 4s or worse for me. I went on to wait a week, kind of see how things shake out, and then go from there. And then to put a little bit on top of that, we have Jacoby Brissett now starting, which shows a whole new wrinkle in there where with Tua, we at least knew we were getting a decent quarterback with upside. Jacoby Brissett looked awful, but maybe he gets, a week of preparation. He looks a little bit better. But I'm kind of fading that entire pass catching situation. And then we have Henry Ruggs. And he just came off a huge week. And I think a lot of people are going to be running out the best case scenario on Henry Ruggs. Okay, second-year breakout. He's a stud. I get it. He had 5 catches, 113 yards, and a touchdown last week against a very good Steelers defense, and I give him that full respect. But I think we're kind of jumping to conclusions here. I understand that he played great, and a lot of you guys liked him in college, but at the end of the day, he has a 13% target share. If we want a reliable week-to-week asset at wide receiver, they need to have more targets. The volume is what kind of gives you that stability, that locked-in upside at wide receiver. And with Henry Ruggs, you're just hoping for blown coverage or a deep play. And the problem is that the Miami Dolphins, the team he's going up against, has the best cornerback duo in the entire country. Byron Jones and Xavier Howard are no joke. Henry Ruggs has one of the worst matchups according to PFF. He has a 13.9 grade. It's out of like 100 and something, and it's labeled as poor, right? He's going to have a tough time. I think the way that this defense is going to work with Miami on the perimeter is it's going to filter a lot of targets to Hunter Renfrow. I still wouldn't even really want to start Hunter Renfrow, because when you start a wide receiver in your flex spot, you want upside, because if Hunter Renfrow doesn't offer upside, so if you're not getting upside from your flex spot, just put a running back in there. And then I also think that opens things up for Darren Waller. I'm also fading Henry Ruggs' clone, Mecole Hardman. You could literally have these guys in like a Spider-Man type meme. They are the same guy, where they are just these fast field stretchers, don't command a lot of targets. And I know that Mecole Hardman commanded 8 targets last week, and that's great, right? A lot of these guys are going to get peppered with targets every once in a while, but I think that it would be bold to say that Mecole Hardman is somebody that should be starting in your lineup this week, because I think that the 8 targets was kind of a product of, the Ravens defense put a lot of their coverage onto Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had a quiet day. They went elsewhere. And even with 8 targets, Mecole Hardman still only put up 5 catches for 55 yards. And I think with this volume, a lot of the Mecole Hardman guys are going to want to start Mecole Hardman because, he got the volume. Now he's going to get the volume again, and we can expect a boom week. And I completely get it. Those boom weeks will come, and I'm going to get burned at some point. I might even get burned this week from a Mecole Hardman boom week, but I think that it's a bad idea to bet on the targets being there. He had 3 targets in week 1. He probably stays around that 3, 4, 5 target range. And I think this is going to be a game where Derwin James is going to give him a lot of problems. Asante Samuel Jr. has looked great as a rookie. And I think after Tyreek Hill's, down performance, they probably go back to Tyreek Hill, try and get him involved. Maybe say, oh, we didn't get Tyreek Hill enough touches. That's why we lost the game. And you kind of have another squeaky wheel kind of thing going on there, where they get Tyreek and Kelsey involved, and then they worry about everybody else like they usually do. Now, that's going to do it for us today, fellas. Tomorrow, so today's Friday, tomorrow on Saturday, I still don't know what I want to post. Let me know. The streamer video, you guys want, I did a poll on the streamer video, but nobody ended up watching it, like the streaming options video. So I'm thinking about either doing an injury report, like kind of round up the injuries on the week, and kind of say, what happens if player X misses the game. If he plays, would I play him? Could also go rest of season rankings. I think rest of season rankings could be fun. Now that I'm approved by Fantasy Pros, I could do some rest of season rankings, tell you guys, 5 players might be moving up, 5 players that move down. Rest of season rankings are fun to cover. So let me know. I've been having problems like Monday. I think we have a tight Monday through Friday schedule right now. Even Sunday having the Patreon only live streams, but then Saturday, I don't know what I want to be putting out, because it's one day away from Sunday, so no one really cares, but I need something that has enough draw for it to actually do something, if that makes sense. Now, with that being said, I'm going to go eat lunch. I'm going to come back, do my weekly rankings. If you want the weekly rankings, if you want the exclusive live streams, all that good stuff for $5, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. As always, I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching to the end here. And I'll see you guys in the next one.